The year was 1872, and the Crawford family lived in a modest clapboard house at the edge of Maplewood, a small New England town where everyone knew each other's business. Life there was ordinary, until the night 12-year-old Emily looked up from her sewing and said something that froze her mother's heart. "Mother," she whispered, pointing toward the window, "Grandfather is smiling at us." Mrs. Crawford's sewing needle slipped from her hand. Her father had been gone for 3 years, taken suddenly by pneumonia. She scolded Emily gently, thinking it was childish imagination. But Emily's eyes were wide with certainty. "He told me something," Emily added quietly. "He says his watch is still in the attic, the one with the letters scratched inside. He wants you to find it." Her mother's hands trembled as she climbed into the attic later that evening. Dust stung her nose as she opened an old trunk. And there, beneath moth-eaten blankets, lay a gold pocket watch. She turned it over. On the back, faint but clear, were the initials, R.C. She collapsed to her knees. When her husband returned from work and she told him, he stared at Emily in disbelief. "How could you know that?" he demanded. Emily only lowered her gaze. "He told me." That night, as the candlelight flickered on the walls, Emily's parents looked at their daughter with both awe and unease. The child they thought they knew suddenly seemed touched by something far beyond their understanding. It didn't take long for word to spread. In a town like Maplewood, secrets traveled faster than the wind. At the bakery, Mrs. Harrison leaned close to her friend and whispered, "They say little Emily Crawford talks to the dead." At the church, Reverend Calloway thundered from the pulpit about false spirits that deceive the innocent. Some families shunned the Crawfords, pulling their children away when Emily walked by. Yet others came knocking at the door in hushed desperation. They had lost sons to the war, daughters to fever, husbands to accidents. If this strange child truly spoke with the departed, then perhaps she held the key to their peace. At night, Emily lay awake in bed, listening to the creaks of the old house and the whispers she could not always shut out. She prayed softly, "God, why me? Why not someone stronger?" But the only reply was the faint brush of unseen voices, hovering just beyond the veil. The Harrison family was the first to ask for help. Their eldest son, William, had fallen in the war, leaving his parents broken. They arrived one evening, hands trembling, faces pale, with both hope and fear. Emily sat in the parlor, her small hands folded tightly in her lap. Her heart pounded like a drum. She didn't know what would happen, only that when she closed her eyes, the voices grew louder. The silence stretched until Emily's lips began to move. But the words were not her own. Her voice dropped low, steady. "Tell Mother I am safe. Tell Father I do not blame him for letting me go. And tell her. The flag she hides under her pillow gives me comfort still." Mrs. Harrison gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. No one knew about that flag except her husband. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clutched Emily's hand. When Emily opened her eyes again, she slumped forward, drained. Her father carried her to bed while the Harrisons wept with gratitude in the parlor. From that moment, there was no denying it. Emily Crawford had a gift. But with that gift came a burden that would only grow heavier. The sittings became more frequent. Families who had lost loved ones begged for just a moment with their dead. Emily, though young, did not know how to refuse. Each session left her weaker. Her cheeks grew pale, her frame thinner. She often slept entire days away after speaking with the spirits. Her mother worried constantly. "She is only a child," she told her husband. "This is not natural." But Mr. Crawford, torn between concern and compassion, struggled to say no. "They need her," he argued. "Look at the peace she gives them." Emily herself said little. At times she wished desperately to be free of it. She would watch children her age playing outside, laughing in the sun, and feel the ache of longing. Yet when a grieving widow clasped her hand and whispered, "Thank you, child. Thank you." Emily knew she could not turn away. Her gift was not only her own, it belonged to others too. News of Emily's abilities reached beyond Maplewood. Among the curious came Thomas Reed, a sharp-eyed journalist from Boston, determined to expose her as a fraud. He arrived one afternoon, notebook in hand, his voice clipped and skeptical. "So you are the child who speaks with ghosts?" he said bluntly. Emily shifted nervously under his gaze. When he asked for a sitting, her father reluctantly agreed. In the parlor, Thomas crossed his arms, watching closely. "Call my sister," he demanded. "If this is real, prove it." Emily closed her eyes. A silence stretched. Then she spoke softly. "She wants you to stop blaming yourself. She says." The locket, hidden in the old desk drawer, still carries her hair. "You never told your wife." Thomas's eyes widened, his face drained of color. No one knew about that locket, not even his closest friends. But instead of confessing the truth, he scribbled furiously in his notebook. Days later, his article called Emily a child manipulated by desperate mourners. Emily read none of it, but she felt the weight of his disbelief like a stone in her chest. At school, the children no longer played with her. They whispered behind her back, called her Ghost Girl, and crossed themselves when she passed. Even the teachers seemed uneasy, avoiding her gaze during lessons. Emily spent her recesses sitting alone beneath the oak tree, tracing patterns in the dirt with a stick. Her only comfort was a stray cat that wandered the schoolyard. She named it Whiskers, and it curled up in her lap while she ate her bread and cheese in silence. At night, she cried quietly into her pillow. "I never asked for this," she whispered. But the gift would not leave her. The voices came whether she wanted them or not, sometimes whispering in the dark until she covered her ears to shut them out. The loneliness pressed heavier than the spirits themselves. One crisp autumn evening, Emily was sitting on the church steps, hugging her knees, when Clara Bennett appeared. Clara was her age, with kind brown eyes and hair tied in a neat braid. She had lost her little brother to fever that summer. Instead of avoiding her, Clara sat beside her. For a long time, they said nothing. Finally, Clara asked softly, "Does it hurt, talking to them?" Emily turned, startled. No one had ever asked her that. "Not my body," she whispered, "but my heart." Clara nodded slowly, as if she understood. From that night, Clara began walking home with Emily after school, ignoring the whispers of the other children. She didn't treat Emily as a curiosity or a curse, but simply as a girl. For the first time in months, Emily smiled. One winter's evening, during a session with a grieving father, Emily's demeanor changed. Her hands trembled. Her voice grew urgent. "Beware the river crossing," she said, her eyes unfocused. "3 lives hang in the balance. Take another road." The father left bewildered, but unsettled. Days later, as he drove his carriage with his 3 children, he remembered the warning. Instead of crossing the old wooden bridge, he chose the longer path. That very night, the bridge collapsed into the icy water. Word spread quickly. Even skeptics could not explain it away. Many now saw Emily not just as a medium, but perhaps as a messenger of something greater. But the burden grew heavier. Each vision left her more fragile. Clara began to notice the dark circles beneath her eyes and the way her hands shook even when she wasn't speaking with the spirits. Reverend Calloway could no longer remain silent. One Sunday after his sermon, he summoned Emily and her parents into his office. His voice was stern, his eyes filled with suspicion. "Child, what you are doing is dangerous," he declared. "The dead belong to God. You meddle in things not meant for mortals." Emily trembled, but lifted her chin. "If God gives comfort to the grieving through me, how is that not his work?" The Reverend faltered. He had expected fear, not faith. His disapproval did not soften, but doubt flickered across his face. "You walk a dangerous path," he warned. Emily left shaken, but also strangely stronger. For the first time, She began to believe her gift might not be a curse, but a calling. As the visits grew, Mr. Crawford began to accept small payments from the grieving families. He reasoned that Emily's future should be secured and that people wanted to give something in return. But one evening, Emily overheard him speaking of the money. Tears filled her eyes. She burst into the room. "Father, you cannot sell their sorrow," she cried. "It isn't mine to profit from." Her father looked stricken, torn between pride and shame. "We have to survive, Emily," he said softly. She shook her head. "Not like this. If you turn my gift into trade, it will lose what little goodness it has." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Mr. Crawford's shoulders sagged under the weight of his daughter's words. That night, he returned the money to those who had given it. But guilt remained like a shadow in his heart, a reminder that even good intentions can falter under the weight of temptation. Winter crept into Maplewood, and with it came long nights when Emily and Clara would sit together by the fire. The warmth of the flames contrasted with the chill that seemed to seep into Emily's bones after each session. One night, Clara leaned close and whispered, "Emily, you always speak for others. But have you ever tried to speak with someone for yourself?" Emily hesitated. Her gift had always been about healing others' wounds, not her own. "I don't think I can," she murmured. But Clara pressed her hand gently. "Maybe you should try. You carry so much, and no one carries it for you." That evening, when the house was still, Emily knelt by her bed. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the silence, "Grandmother, can you hear me?" For a moment, nothing. Then, as if a soft wind stirred the air, she heard a voice inside her heart. "Child, you are not cursed. You are chosen, but chosen paths are never easy." Tears filled Emily's eyes, not from fear, but from relief. For the first time, she felt the gift was not a punishment, it was a purpose, and that purpose was beginning to unfold. One violent night, thunder shook the Crawford home. Rain lashed against the windows as lightning illuminated the dark. A frantic knock rattled the door, and Mr. Crawford opened it to find a woman drenched in black, her veil clinging to her face. "My husband drowned at sea," she cried. "Please, let me speak to him." Emily, pale and trembling, agreed despite her mother's protests. The woman knelt in the parlor as Emily closed her eyes. Suddenly, Emily gasped as salt and brine filled her senses. She felt the rocking of the waves, the panic of lungs desperate for air, and then peace. Through Emily's lips, the drowned man spoke. "Tell her I prayed until the end. Tell her I saw her face before I let go. Tell her I am safe." The widow clutched Emily's hand, sobbing as though the sea itself had been drained from her heart. But Emily collapsed, unconscious for hours. When she finally woke, her body felt frailer than ever. Even Dr. Whitfield feared the toll might one day be too great. The next morning, Dr. Whitfield came to examine Emily. He was a kindly man with silver hair and spectacles that often slipped down his nose. After a long silence, he took her parents aside. "Her body is too fragile to bear this strain," he said gravely. "If she continues, her heart may give out. She needs rest, not endless grief poured upon her shoulders." Mrs. Crawford's eyes filled with tears, but when they told Emily, she only nodded. "I know," she said softly, "but if my life is shorter because of this, then at least it will mean something." Clara wept when Emily confided this to her. "Don't say that. You're my only friend." Emily squeezed her hand. "Then promise me this. If I go before you, don't carry it as sorrow. Carry it as proof that even in death, love remains." Clara couldn't answer. She only held Emily tighter, as if her arms could anchor her to this world. Word spread of the doctor's warning, but instead of deterring families, it made them desperate. Mothers begged at the Crawford door. Fathers pleaded for just one message before Emily grew too weak. Some townsfolk argued she should be shielded, protected from the endless demands. Others declared her a blessing that belonged to all who suffered. The Crawfords' home became a battleground of opinion. Emily watched it all quietly, her face pale but her eyes calm. "I cannot choose who deserves comfort," she told her parents. "Every voice I hear cries with the same sorrow. Every soul longs to be remembered." But behind her calm words, her body weakened daily. Even climbing the stairs left her breathless. Clara noticed the way Emily sometimes winced, holding her chest as if even her heart strained against the weight of the unseen. The town argued louder, but Emily remained silent, carrying her gift like a candle in the wind. Months later, Thomas Reed returned to Maplewood. His sharpness was gone, replaced with guilt that weighed heavier than his satchel. He found Emily sitting under the oak tree, Clara beside her. His voice was low, almost pleading. "I wronged you," he admitted. "When you spoke of the locket, I knew you were true. But I was afraid of what it meant, afraid of the truth. So I called you a fraud." Emily looked at him with weary kindness. "The truth always finds its way, Mr. Reed. Sometimes it just needs time." The words cut him deeper than any rebuke. Reed removed his hat, his eyes glistening. "I want to tell your story honestly, not to shame you, but to show the world what you've given. May I?" Emily smiled faintly. "Do what your heart tells you." That's all anyone can do. And for the first time, Thomas Reed wept openly. Not for a story, but for a girl who carried more grace than anyone he had ever met. Clara grew desperate as Emily weakened. One evening, she burst into Emily's room, tears streaking her face. "Stop, Emily! Please, just stop. You're dying, I can see it." Emily, lying in bed with whiskers curled at her feet, reached for her hand. "Clara, the spirits call to me, not because I am strong, but because I am willing. If I turn away now, who will answer them?" Clara shook her head furiously. "Then let someone else. Let anyone else." But Emily only smiled sadly. "I think God gave this to me because he knew I wouldn't turn away, no matter the cost." Clara sobbed, her head against Emily's shoulder. "I don't want to lose you." Emily stroked her hair gently. "You won't lose me. You'll hear me in the wind, in the quiet, in every kindness you give to others. Love never leaves, Clara. It only changes form." One evening, as Emily sat with Clara nearby, a soft whisper filled her heart. It was different this time, gentler, more familiar. "Tell my sister Clara I forgive her. She couldn't have stopped the fever." Emily's eyes flew open. She turned to her friend, tears brimming. "Clara, it's your brother." Clara froze. For months, she had hidden her guilt, believing she hadn't done enough to save him. "He says it wasn't your fault," Emily continued softly. "He says he loves you, and you must let go." Clara broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She clung to Emily as if the words had broken a chain around her heart. "All this time," she whispered, "I thought I let him die." Emily held her gently. "Now you know the truth. Carry it with peace." That night, Clara's grief transformed into something lighter, and Emily knew her gift had given her dearest friend the freedom she herself might never have. Sensing her strength fading, Emily asked for one last gathering. The Crawfords opened their home, and families filled every corner, their faces lined with both sorrow and anticipation. Emily sat in a chair near the fire,